Family and fellow soldiers, I'm the professor, and this is the moment of truth. We got a serious situation here. No, really, we got a serious situation. Roly-Poly Martin is mad. Not just barking at the moon crazy as usual, but he's angry. No, Popeyes didn't run out of hot wings again. Apparently, the federal government ran out of money.
We told you Monday, Congressman Hank Johnson, he led the signing of a letter signed by 38 of the 56 members of the Congressional Black Caucus to President Joe Biden as related to the issue of advertising for black-owned media. Highly critical of federal government, the resources that have been spent towards black-owned media. Today, the Department of Health and Human Services, they released a letter that they sent to him. They said from day one of the Biden-Harris administration through April 30th, 2022, the HHS COVID-19 PEC is projected to spend about 18%, approximately $65 million, of its total paid media budget targeting black audiences. This means that the total spend for this single federal campaign is well beyond parity for the black community, which makes up approximately 13% of the U.S. population. Now, keep in mind, black folks are 13% of those impacted by COVID. Of the entire paid media budget, more than 5.5%, approximately $20 million, was spent on black-owned and operated media, e.g., TV One, the National Newspaper Publishers Association, National Association of Black-Owned Broadcasters, and Oprah Winfrey Network. The Government Accountability Office report mentioned in your letter cited 1.02% as a level of investment for advertising of black-owned, give me 1 second, jump to the next page here, of black-owned, okay, here we go. Let me go back down here. Black-owned operated businesses by the federal government. But in their letter, they said that, their campaign, they spent additional $45 million, or 12.5%, with black targeted media, BET, The Breakfast Club, and Fox Soul. Quote, that is media that has extensive black reach, but isn't black owned or operated. I am going to be requesting from HHS an actual breakdown of that $20 million. Because what I want to know is, what is the total amount of money spent on paid media? And how much of that money goes to black-owned media? Now, it's interesting how they make this point about how they spend $45 million with black targeted media. First of all, folks, OWN, the Oprah Winfrey Network, is not black-owned. It is not black-owned. Any COVID money that's going to OWN is going to AT&T. They mentioned the Breakfast Club, that's iHeartRadio. Fox Soul, Fox. BET, Viacom CBS. Now, they include Fox Soul as saying they have an extensive black reach. I don't think so. I think we have a larger reach here at Roland Martin Unfiltered. And I know we receive 0. I think we have a larger reach here at Roland Martin Unfiltered.
Now don't worry, folks, we're going to be giving Roly-Poly the business in a moment, but first I think it's important that we focus on what was said here. This letter from Congressman What's-His-Name, part of the Congressional Black Talkers, you notice what's mentioned here, that the Department of Health and Human Services has a COVID-19 public education campaign, and they use that money to the tune of tens of millions of dollars with black targeted media. And who were they giving these checks to? Who were they giving money to spew the government line on COVID? BET, The Breakfast Club, Fox Soul. Oh, so all that time, because I know there's a few of y'all who listen to these clowns, you're sitting here wondering why they're so hot and bothered about COVID-19 and why it is that they're pushing this at you, and they never mention, oh, by the way, the government's paying us to do this. See, they leave that out. When you got these bought and paid for bootlick media owned by these white companies or a bunch of Negroes desperately wanting some white contracts, that's what happens. So what you see is that all of the concern and the anger and just this non-stop litany of why the black community should do this, black folks should do that, as it pertains to the pandemic, what you see is that the federal government was spending a lot of money there. So whenever you got these bought and paid for Negroes who are saying this stuff on just a number of issues, it ain't just, by the way, limited to COVID-19, but this just happens to be an example, one of many. Federal government actually paying these people, these black people who you see or hear on a near daily basis, telling them here's what we want said and here's the money to say it. But when these guys get on the air, they never talk about that part. But of course, that's not what Roly-Poly's angry about. No, what he's angry about is how is he supposed to buy more bonbons and macaroni and cheese if the federal government ain't caking him off? Oh, and by the way, that whole little tirade about his reach, all this reach he got, his reach. Y'all cut Roly some slack. You know he ain't good at math or thinking. By the way, he posted this crap 10 days ago, just 10 days ago. And all he could manage to get for all of his cry-babying and whining was a mere 9,400 views. That's it, 10 days ago? Isn't he supposed to have over 800,000 subscribers? At least that's what I heard. Sure can't tell by looking, though, because out of all of the alleged hundreds of thousands of folks who subscribe to Roly-Poly Martin, he can't even manage to get but 1% of his subscribers to actually watch his crap. 1%. That's what that 9,400 represents out of over 800,000. Only about 1% of his audience. Now, I dare you to find even one of my videos or any of the new Voices of Black Media. You go ahead and you go through our YouTube channels. You try to find any of our videos that only get 9,000 views. Hell, I'll save you some work. You just go ahead and take a look at my channel here. These white supremacists and these bootlicks, they wouldn't have to worry about hunting me down if one of my videos was such a failure that my audience, this audience that I spent 15 years cultivating, if I couldn't even get but 9,400 of them to watch a video, if that's all I could get, I'd shut the channel down myself. Far as I'm concerned, that's a wrap. I'd be done. But of course, when you go to Roly-Poly's channel, just like the so-called Black News channel, you find that these guys routinely are down in the couple thousand views or even less in the case of Black News channel per video. Now, the lowest viewed video on my YouTube channel is a video with about 20,000 views, and that was one about the NYPD plowing one of their thug mobiles into protesters back in 2020. And the reason that the views are that low is because YouTube put an age restriction on it. Roly-Poly ain't got no excuse for his failure. With his hundreds of thousands of subs and no age restrictions on that crap that he posts, he can't get but 9,000 people to watch him complain that Biden and the feds ain't caking him off like they supposed to. 9,000 views. No, it's not the subject matter that's the problem. It's the guy presenting it. He can't fool anyone. He can't fool black people into thinking that they should actually pay attention to him. And he's also proving that he's losing his ability to fool any of these white companies or the white government into cutting him a check. Only 1% of his subscribers bother to actually watch his little video. And this is what Roly-Poly calls his reach. You hear that part? I've reached the reach of this channel. Our reach, we got... Yeah, you're reaching all right, trying to talk as if somehow you got people who are just hanging on your every word, Roly. He's got greater reach than some of these white-owned media outlets with black front people. That's what he wants people to think. That's part of why Roly can't get any money from these white companies. These white supremacists, they may be racist, corrupt, and totally immoral, but unlike Roly-Poly, at least these white supremacists can count. And they know that 9,400 is barely 1% of 836,000. That means your retention sucks, Roly. That's not an audience who's engaged. That's an audience who stumbles across your crap by accident, and clearly they ain't hanging around long. And these white supremacists in the government and the white media, they also know that anyone whose audience retention is this feeble, this weak, that's someone who can't even promote themselves, much less whatever the line is coming from the government. This is why we keep telling you all that the most important thing that you can do is to ignore these bootlicks like Roly-Poly, because you're the ones who he and the other bootlicks are trying to attract. Like the Byron Allens and the rest of the trash, they're trying to use you as their base so that they can go run up to the government or run up to some white company and say, and this is why you should pay me some money. That's what Byron Allen's little lawsuits have been about. You need to carry my channels. Why? Look at the viewers I've got. Same thing with Black News Channel. These guys are all doing the same doggone hustle. Why, I've got out of 836,000 people, about 1% of them actually watch what I do, occasionally, sometimes. And that's the reason why you should be giving me a check. And I don't see no check. Y'all couldn't everybody say, check. Where's my check? You're the only ones who they might have a snowball's chance in hell of actually getting to watch them. It's like I and so many others have told you, the job of the bootlick is to prove to whatever their would-be white paymasters are, like MSNBC, CNN, or the federal government, that they can corral black viewers and that they can influence us. These white companies and the government dang sure wouldn't be paying these clowns any money if they thought nobody was paying attention or that we ignored them. And if they can't get us to pay them any attention, then these white companies and the government won't give them anything either. Since black people are obviously ignoring these bootlicks, the government and the white media companies understand there's no consequences for ignoring Roly-Poly and his pals. Hell, why shouldn't the white government spend their money with their white media pals over at Discovery Communications or AT&T or Viacom? Why not? Even if black people don't believe the crap that they see and hear on CNN, at the very least, black people actually watch CNN, certainly more than who watch Roly-Poly Martin, that's for sure. Now you see why we keep telling you guys, it's all about you. Don't you ever buy into that white media con game that, oh, black people's numbers are too small to matter. They've been saying that to us since 1865. They've always been telling black people, oh, your numbers are too small to matter. We're the majority in these cities. Well, you know, it's a statewide numbers you see, or national numbers you see. They're always moving the goalpost on that one, because they're always trying to convince us that we're powerless. And I need you to understand that's a lie. By the way, I got a suggestion for Roly-Poly. Since you're so butthurt that you're receiving zero money from the government's advertising budget, hey, maybe you'd be happy if Health and Human Services gave you 1%, since that's about all the viewers you can actually bring in. And for Roly-Poly to be pretending like he's calling out the ownership of Oprah Winfrey Network and such, it borders on parody for him to be trying to pretend as if somehow he's exposing the white ownership of these alleged black-controlled companies. Roly-Poly may not have a white person or a white-owned company that owns the broom closet that he posts his little asinine videos from, but Roly-Poly carries all the same lines and rhetoric and talking points as an Oprah Winfrey or a Joke Reed or a Don Lemonade. So what's the difference? There isn't one. Roland and the bootlicks will never figure out that it means absolutely nothing to be allegedly black-owned if you're not also black first. The black grassroots, we are the black media because we answer to you, the black community. We're not looking for a white bankroll. That's why you don't see us chasing money from Health and Human Services like Roly does. Now, he did admit that he got $250,000 from the U.S. Census in September of 2020. So you can tell that his nose has been open for a long time trying to get himself some of that white corporate or white government money. He's just sniffing like a hound dog. Y'all need to give me something. Come on. Butter biscuits ain't free. So we see what this is about, what it's always been about. It's been about finessing a government contract for advertising or for whatever. The bootlicks want some money. They want a contract. That's it. And they're salty that they're not getting it. That's what Roly-Poly, Byron Allen, Black Enterprise, and all the rest of the bootlick media is drooling at the mouth over. Government contracts. Tell me something. Is this your black-owned media? Beggars pleading with white daddy for a dime. And you notice that Roly, he doesn't do any cursing and profane language here. You notice that? Why, this rotund little butterball turkey with a beard, he's as polite as you please now, ain't he? See, when Roly talks to black people, that's when he chooses to get profane with it. He's cursing and belligerent and throwing insults and names with black people. Black youth don't fall for Hillary's con game, and Roly says, y'all need to know them young black folks. They ain't gonna get off their asses. You need to focus on the older voters. Yeah, we see how well that worked out now, didn't we? But when he gets on camera, and he gets on his knees to beg like a dog for a government contract from some white company or the government, Roly suddenly, he doesn't bring all that profane, belligerent energy. He gets some act right when it comes time to beg white mommy and white daddy for some money. He knows better than to call himself jumping sharp with them. Because Roly-Poly, like the rest of the bootlicks, he respects white money. but he doesn't respect black people. Now over here in the real black media, we don't roll like that. We're not trying to get a government contract. When it comes to this wicked white supremacist government, as the warrior scholar prophet Khalid Muhammad said, I don't want money from you. I don't want a job from you. I don't want a contract from you. I don't even want contact with you. This is the reason why these little bootlicks like Rowley never go in on these racists in the government, because he wants money from them. Rowley couldn't get himself another cable gig, and ain't nobody else trying to put him on, so what's he doing? He's instead decided to play the role that he was clearly born for. He's going to be at the slop trough in Washington with the rest of the pigs trying to get himself a couple of crumbs. Over here, we're free to speak our minds. We are free to speak for the black streets and take that truth that you guys have been saying and broadcast it to everyone, because we're not trying to stay on the good side of the Department of Health and Human Services or any other apparatus in this white supremacist government. We're here to challenge and destroy white supremacy, not to try to find a comfortable place under it. These bootlicks, they don't like that. Because the black grassroots, we're threatening their little hustle. It's the old, but y'all gonna mess it up for the rest of us. That's why Rowley and his pals, that's why they attack us. We're trying to destroy the system of patronage and cronyism that these bootlicks rely upon for every crumb of their daily bread. You're not about to come to me and say that if the government gives you $250,000, somehow that makes you independent media. Ain't a dang thing independent about you. If you've ever wondered why the bootlicks carry all the government's lines and just mindlessly repeat whatever psychobabble the Dems say or the so-called white liberal media says, it's because they're a paid auxiliary of the white media and the white government. These guys are literally getting government money. This is why Dan Abrams had no problem slapping Rowley around on his show. Oh yeah, he pretended like, well, you've got an audience, Rowley, you got some reach. Yeah, 9,000 people out of 836,000. Good try, Dan. They talk about Rowley like that because it's a joke. It's just the white media's old backhanded compliment. They've got him under total control. They know it, and so does he. Because you can't get money from the white supremacist government and then turn around and say that they don't control or at least heavily influence what you say, especially when you're still sniffing behind them trying to get them to give you more money. This white government doesn't give out money with no strings attached. You want their money, you got to agree to certain conditions. They have not and will not give some bootlick money simply because. They only do it because the government has a particular message that they're trying to put to us. And if they think that you won't carry water for them, exactly the way they tell you to do it, then you're not going to get any of that money. Some of you who have dealt with getting government grants and loans and such, you know exactly how they spell out everything they want, exactly the way they want it, and you better agree to it or you ain't getting any money. And we know this government doesn't have our best interest at heart, because if they did, they would be making sure that we have the money our communities require. White communities don't have to demand money, they get it just because. Hell, even Rowley, at least right now, even he, with his limited intellect, would agree that the government surely doesn't have his interest at heart, because if they did, they wouldn't make him have to beg for money. So why would any sane black person listen to a government that ignores us at best and protects those who kill us at worst? Why would we listen to anyone who gets money from them? So while the black media is talking about black empowerment, Roly-Poly, on the other hand, is willing to settle for mere gainful employment. But here it is, the evidence that these guys are sniffing around trying to get some government money, and the government says, we'll give you money if you say what we want you to say. And then these guys have the nerve to turn around and try to claim that somehow they're media for black people. Not if you can't speak truth to power, you're not. If the white government sits here and says, here's what we want you to say, and you'll get a check if you say it, if you don't have the ability to say, forget it, I disagree with that, I'm not carrying that, I ain't saying that, if you don't have the ability to say no, and you got to make sure you bite your tongue and temper your words, because you don't want to antagonize them, I mean, you're hoping to get caked off somewhere down the line later on. Okay, they couldn't fit you into the fiscal budget this year, but hey, there's always next year, right? That ain't no black media. Real black media doesn't bite its tongue. Real black media is not holding out for a government contract. It's not looking for some white paymaster to be our patron. Real black media speaks for the streets, And it says all the things that white power doesn't want said. That's what a black media does. That's what we do. And for Rowley, this has got to be particularly embarrassing. Because he has to admit, dang, I got at least $250,000 when Trump was in office back in 2020. Maybe I should have been crying tears for him. Maybe I should have been going through the drive-thru saying, y'all need to, I can't believe y'all voted Trump out. Because you see, that's what's going on here. Roly-poly got $250,000 during the Trump years, September 2020. So while Trump was saying all the nonsense that he was saying, and Roly-poly was wagging his finger, he didn't talk about the fact that, hey, I just got $250,000 from Trump's government. No wonder they stopped paying him. Hell, if this is all that $250,000 can get you, I'd cut him off too. So if you want to see what impact people like yourself ignoring the Roly-polies and the bootlicks has had, it's had this impact. These guys are being ignored by their own little Democratic friends who they beat the drum for and work so hard to get them in the federal government just to be ignored. That's why Roly-poly tore himself away from the all-you-can-eat buffet just long enough to grouse and gripe. I'd like to see a breakdown of that budget. I want to know who got what. Jeez, and what's he going to do with the information is what I'd like to know. Oh, we're about to see some king-size pocket watching, ain't we? Don't be at all surprised if before it's all over, Roly-poly suddenly reveals that he's become an independent shill. He stops just being a partisan shill for the Democrats and now is just have cash will travel. Because that's how a lot of these doggone clowns in these political circles do it. I told you before about how a lot of these goofballs, they'll sit here and say if they're a liberal or a conservative, depending on who's paying them. That's basically where their political allegiance lies, with whoever they think that they can get the most money from. Roly's sitting there grimacing and frowning and making 50 different faces. But you know what? Roly's finding out that all that loyalty really wasn't worth very much to begin with. That's why he's sitting here saying all this stuff. And if the Democrats don't decide to start cutting him a regular check out of that federal budget, I would not at all be surprised if before it's all over, Roly-poly suddenly winds up on Fox News, not to argue with Tucker Carlson, but to see if maybe he can get a job because Candace Owens couldn't. And Roly doesn't have to fear that doing that would hurt his future employment prospects with the Democrats, because as he's already shown us, nobody would be watching anyway. Good day, and be one. I'd like to take a moment to mention some of our contributors: Peggy Taylor, Sharon Logan, Naji95, Gregory Franklin, and Mark Anderson. Salute to them and thank you to everyone for listening, liking, and sharing this message. Black media only exists because of you.